Welcome to Sales Velocity TV, where we pull back the curtain on how the top businesses in the world sell more with less resistance. Bringing over 50 plus years of combined sales experience and over 100 million in revenue generated, please welcome the hosts of Sales Velocity TV and two incredibly entertaining gentlemen, Andrew Cass and Aaron Parkinson.
Welcome back to another episode of Sales Velocity TV. Tough talk today, Aaron, on scaling your business. We're going to deviate from the specificity of sales talk today, although there will be some sales talk tied in here, of course. But we get these questions a lot. I'm at a sticking point in my business. How do I scale? What do I need to focus on? Operations, marketing, sales, fulfillment? And the answer is yes to all of it, but there's a way and a system and an approach, and we're going to talk about it today.
Yeah, man. Happy Friday. Good to see your face again. Ooh, I look bright today.
You're looking bright. I can unbright you, by the way, here. I have some very powerful tools here in my studio. See, is that a little...
Oh, look at that.
Is that a little better?
Just took me right down.
Yeah, I'm just, in case you were about to ask, I'm sporting the camo today in recognition of Memorial Day here in the U.S. You're not in the U.S. Many of our listeners are not. So sporting the camo, special thanks to our veterans, those who've served, those who've protected our freedom and the opportunity to live in this great country. So there we go. And this is a great shirt. Oh, very comfy, by the way.
It fits you well. What are you, like 7% body fat now?
Yeah, touch less, to be honest.
Well, I don't want to insult.
You're like, oh man, you really keep an eye. It was a loaded question, like, because you were probably like, he really shouldn't know the answer, right?
No, I knew you would know the answer down to the decimal. What are you, like 6.6 and you're insulted?
Like 6.5, something like that.
I think that the veterans thing's super important to me. You know, everybody has differing opinions on that. Our opinions are very clear. I believe that we can do what we can do because we've got stability, we've got safety, we keep the bad guys away. You know, people make commitments to low-paying, high-stress, positions in the military, and those people that just don't understand that, they just don't understand that freedom isn't free, right? So
freedom isn't free. You got to recognize those who protect and serve, no doubt about it. So happy Memorial Day to all of you that are here in the U.S. A little holiday on Monday. No such thing as a holiday in our world, though. I'm sure it'll be a regular work day. But good one here today, Aaron.
That's the kind of the point of what we're talking about today. Is if you do this right, you take a holiday whenever you want.
True.
Right? If you don't do this right, you're getting no holidays forever.
Yeah, and let's talk about what this is, because scaling is big. Scaling is important. Scaling is what everybody wants to do, but I feel like you earn the right to scale. I don't think you can just go, hey, I want to scale my business, and you go scale your business. I feel like there's stepping stones along the way. Tell me if you agree, where you hit a certain level and maybe you pull back a little bit. It's almost like a stair-step incline, right? Like you don't ever see a company scale like this. They tend to scale like this. Right?
Correct.
It's a stair step. And I think that you have to wrap your head around that, because if you think you're going to be on this trajectory, and we see them at times, it's very exciting when you're on a trajectory that seems straight up, but pragmatically, you're never going to be straight up all the time. So I want to talk a little bit about that stair step path that it takes to scale today. You agree?
Yeah, I can't remember who I was listening to the other day. It was like Naval or Pinder. I can't remember who it was, but basically what he was saying is that, you can almost tell a business's decline speed by the trajectory of their incline speed, right? So he basically said, if you see a business grow by 300% 3 years in a row, he said, I can almost guarantee you there's a dumpster fire burning in the operation side of their business.
Just too fast, too aggressive, too high velocity for any sustainability, basically.
And humans, like, we're designed different, right? Whether it's genetics or God or whatever you want to call it, we're designed to reach. We're designed to keep pushing the limits. We're designed to gamble.
Yep.
So when we see something that's good, our first inclination is let's go faster, right? And
press the gas.
Yeah, let's press the gas. Ooh, I'm making sales. Let's press the gas. I've got the bull by the horns. Let's go. And the challenge with that is that we have to almost fight our own wiring, our own motivations to do it the right way. And, Andrew, you and I see this all the time. I mean, we've got a ton of clients that come to us and they might be doing, $200,000 a month in revenue, and they're on this trajectory, and they're like, how do I do $1 million a month? Can we do that like in the next 60, 90 days? And
I don't know
the
anybody that
reality
says those
is
things.
you can't do it right. You can't do it properly without breaking a lot of stuff. And I think that everybody wants to focus on the sexy stuff first. We're going to talk today about pretty much sales, marketing, and operations, right? Those are the three key pillars to scaling
the three
business.
buckets here in scaling
Absolutely.
is having a really good game plan around your operations, your marketing agenda, and your sales process.
Absolutely. And they overlap, right? Like everybody thinks they're these independent pillars, but the reality is there's a little bit of marketing and sales, there's a little bit of sales in operations, and it's this kind of this wheel that goes around and they're kind of overlapping a little bit, right? And the first thing I think that we want to talk about today is the thing that nobody wants to talk about, which is the operational side of your business, right? What you can almost translate the word operations to customer experience, right? Because 99% of what happens in your operation side of your business is directly connected to your fulfillment. It's your customer service. It's your shipping. It's your product delivery. It's your execution with your team. It's all these different pieces, right? The great thing about where we're at today in the business world is it's never been faster or easier to get in front of people, right? With all of the networks that are available, from TikTok to Snap to Google to Facebook to Instagram to YouTube to blah blah, television, radio, like you can tap into anything within 2 hours, right? So it's never been easier, which actually makes it more dangerous, because we're so motivated by the more leads, more sales. We put the cart before the horse, right? What we should be asking ourselves before we do anything is, how do I design the ultimate customer experience? How do I make sure that all of my fulfillment side of my business is A-level, has the wow factor, is going to give the customer a feeling of like, wow, I'm so happy that I decided to do business with this company. Because if you don't get that figured out first, and you go jam a bunch of people, customers, leads, sales into your front end, right? The dark side of how easy it is to get leads and sales now is that the other side is it's never been easier for customers to talk about how shitty their experience was with you.
Yeah, it's a very transparent world today on the internet.
They used to say like one bad customer will tell, there was an old, you might know the quote, like one bad customer will tell 100 people.
Yeah.
Right? This was like in the 80s when like you had a furniture store or a pharmacy or something in a small
internet.
town.
No
right?
internet.
Yeah, the internet's probably, 10x'd?
Yeah.
That? I mean, one post on Facebook of like, oh, I ordered this thing from this company and it didn't arrive for 3.5 weeks. I mean,
Yeah, and listen, people are mean today. Even if it's not true, they'll post it. So you got to be really careful. I think you just nailed it. I think that you have to be razor sharp with how you operate prior to bringing anything in, any leads, any sales, and like you said, because there's just so much risk of slippage. Right? You can't risk slippage today. I mean, you don't want to anyways. It's not all about how you're going to get a bad comment on Facebook. It's the fact that you're not going to be able to scale something if you can't keep your customers happy and you don't develop them. Right?
Absolutely. You're not going to maximize your average order value. You're not going to maximize the lifetime value of that person coming back. You're not going to maximize.
They won't send.
Right. You're not going to maximize the experience where they'll talk to other people and refer you. Mm-hmm. Right. And we talk about models, I think, a lot on this, Andrew. And for me, one of the first things I look at with companies is everyone likes to talk about their sales model and their marketing model, but they don't like to talk about their operations model.
It's not as exciting.
It's not as exciting. And it's not as exciting for
boring.
me.
It's a little bit boring. Right? It's internal. Nobody sees it. It's kind of boring.
To be honest, I'll be completely honest. Operations is not my jam at all. I'm a promoter. I'm a sales guy. I'm an idea guy, right? But when we start off in our businesses, typically you start as a one-man show and you become a two-man show, three-man show, and so on and so forth. The most important hire for me in almost every business that I've had has been my operations manager or my COO.
We were just talking about that actually for our company before the call. That's interesting that you say that. And I knew that about you, but that I didn't realize how much emphasis you had on that role.
Yeah, because I'm not good at it,
yeah.
right? I like the new, I like the creative, I like the ideation, I like the scale, right? We talk about scale. I don't think scale operations. I think more leads, more sales. Like that's how I'm
But you're also smart enough to know that you're not going to dump them into a poor operation.
Well, and I've done it. I've done it in the past, and
You've done both. What? Dump them into poor and dump them into good. You've seen it all, right?
Absolutely, right? And so as you start to think to yourself, I got something, I think that this could be 10, 20, 100x the size. The most important hire for me has been a competent COO, and they are not at all like me. In fact, I butt heads with my COO.
A different skill set. It's a different personality.
Completely different. They're more analytical. They've usually done a ton of project management, education. They're very organized. They're about the development of your team, the culture of your team. They're about systems. They're about SOPs. They're about procedures. And usually, I'm at odds with my COO because I'm like, well, I think we could take on 10 new clients this month. And she'll say to me, no, we've already defined that the maximum we can take is 6 and you're not bringing 10 on. And I go, yeah, but this is a great opportunity. And she goes, no, you're not. That's it. Right? Like we butt heads all the time because she knows the model that we have in our company. We've got it broken down into like business units, right? So it takes X amount of people to have the ultimate experience for X amount of customers. Once we go beyond that, things start to break. Then we've got to hire people. We've got to train them. We've got to onboard them. We've got to get them into knowing what your model is, whether you're selling widgets and you need to know how early you need to order those, how long it's going to take to ship, how many shipping people you need to have, how many customer service people you need to have for X amount of orders, right? You have to have that model in place and not stray from it. Because the moment that you stray from it, it becomes that dumpster fire in your business. And until you really have that clearly defined, you haven't earned the right to go and scale it with more leads and sales.
And that's kind of what I meant in the beginning by you earn the right. You sort of graduate to this over time, right? That's why it's stair-step incline, not straight up incline, right? As you get to a certain point where it's like, okay, I'm going to now invest in the systems internally so that I can go out and invest in the traffic and the media. Where most just want to dive into the traffic and the media and they'll sort of worry about the operations later. Once we get sales and we have leads coming in, we'll then go clean up our operations, right? That tends to be a common default reaction by a lot of business owners. Would you agree?
I would, and I want to make sure that I'm really clear on here. I don't think you should start building out a huge infrastructure first. I think you should get proof of concept on your offer, your idea, your product first. But what ends up happening, because I think the way that we're wired, is we go get that proof of concept and we go, holy crap!
It sells, it works, let's blow it up.
It sells, it works, let's jam it.
Right.
And you have to get that proof of concept and you just have to take a little pause for a second and really just ask yourself, do I have everything in place for the perfect customer experience? And do I know what's going to happen at step 2, step 3, step 4? And what I mean step 2, step 3, step 4 is at different levels of sales and revenue, do you have that clearly mapped out so that you don't break your own system? Because it's very, very hard. And I'll give you an example of this, Andrew. People love real life examples. My wife follows this influencer online. I won't call her out who the influencer is, but she decided that she was going to launch a subscription box.
Your wife or the
influencer? Okay. This person has like. I
thought your wife was getting into the subscription business. I was like, hey, you didn't even tell me. That's amazing.
Maybe in the future, but no. Right now, she's finishing her teacher's degree, so she wants to go teach kids art. So
awesome, man, great,
yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah, she's gonna be a teacher next year. It's amazing.
That is awesome.
So she follows this influencer. This lady built up this massive audience over 5 years. She had a reality TV show. She had all these things, like, could do no wrong. Decides she's going to launch a subscription box. Gets the wrong advice from the wrong people, wrong operational setup, launches this thing, whole website goes down first day, right? People can't process their orders. People are in queue forever. An absolute cluster bomb of a launch. Like something like 20,000 people hit the site because she's been building it up for like a month. Didn't space it out, didn't do test runs, didn't check the tech, didn't whatever. I watched this lady literally spend a week apologizing on social media constantly with nothing but pissed off people.
Wow.
Right? Because her mind was like, it's time to monetize, to capitalize on what I've built, but didn't have either the right people, maybe not the right COO or the right, tech team.
Tech team, whatever, it all falls under, right? Tech
it all
team,
falls under operations, right?
Marketing director, whatever.
And it really, really hurt her brand because
you don't get a second chance to make a first impression, right?
Yeah, the negative feeling from her audience was astronomical, right? Boy. I mean, she was still dealing with backed up orders something like 4 weeks later, people trying to process orders, right?
Man.
That's somebody reaching too far too fast.
Yep.
She could have done a little sample test, got feedback, checked the tech, checked the customer service, checked the process, mapped out her operations better, and then gone.
And maybe even said, listen, I'm going to do an offer for like the first 100 people, and I'm going to actually figure out. Great idea, right? Just don't go blow it out to the public, but maybe blow it out to a sliver of the public.
Absolutely.
And channel it a little bit and control it so that topic of the day here, or topic of the, the first part of the topic, so that she can get operations in order to then go scale it. So it's like 2 steps back to take 3 steps forward again, right?
Right.
So if you do that because we are so impatient today, right? I mean, that's and that's okay, right? I'll take
the marketing piece down.
Yeah,
right?
And I'll take an impatient person any day of the week over somebody who's overly patient and doesn't have a lot of urgency, right?
No question. There's no question. And that's why I'm saying, like, I'm not about like making everything perfect before you do anything, right? And getting the perfect operational structure, because that takes a lot of money and a lot of time and a lot of blah, blah, blah. But, before you start going hog wild and before you start going crazy, hold on one sec. I'm doing my show. Can I help you?
No.
Okay. All right.
So, AC guy again?
No, actually, that was my wife. I think she just brought my son home because he's sick or something like that.
Uh-oh.
So she had her marketing down pat. She built the audience. She built the rapport. She built the trust. She built everything, right? I don't know what her sales process was like on the back end of the subscription box, right? But clearly the operations was like way second thought, way down the line.
There you go. Second thought.
Right? So as a result, really tarnished the brand, lost a ton of orders too. Something like 10,000 orders couldn't be processed. Like, we're talking about real money here. Just trying to reach too far too fast.
Wow. That's a meltdown.
It was a complete meltdown. It was painful to watch. I actually put her in touch with one of my friends who has 10 subscription boxes. He's an absolute monster in that area. When she was melting down, I said, do you want to talk to my buddy here? Because clearly his team knows what your team doesn't, right? So we want to reach out and help her, and I think they actually ended up connecting.
Wow, that's amazing.
But the big thing for me is you have to have mathematical models in each part of these 3 key pillars. You have to know how many business units you're going to need for how many sales units and operations, right? In your sales team, you have to know how many conversions you're going to do per salespeople, per salesperson. You have to know what their max they can take per day is if they're booking sales appointments, to make sure that they're getting efficient follow-up and time to recover and all that kind of stuff. And in your marketing, you have to have models to know exactly what you can afford to pay for each type of product that you sell in order to be able to scale safely and consistently and not go upside down in your business. Right? So you almost have mathematical models in each one of these main tranches to ensure that you're safe and you can scale consistently. And if you just go, I'm just going to go no, balls to the wall and hope for the best. We've seen what happens.
Right. But that's also not a scaling mindset. So we're talking about scaling the business today. So exactly what you just said, she didn't have a scaling mindset. She had a right now make money mindset. That's different. Right. That's very different. And if you find that you're in that spot where I need to make money right now, I need to go do this launch, it's okay to need the money. It's okay to want to go raise money. And it's okay to be able to sell your way to funding. I love that. I love it when you can sell your way to capital versus going and borrowing capital. But you better be damn sure that the operation is ready to handle it, because if it isn't, it'll be the quickest in and out money-making event of your life. And that's, that's not a good thing.
No, and we have a friend, and I won't dime him out here either, but you remember him from 10, 15 years ago. What's that?
Did you say dime him out?
I did say dime him out.
So you remember that on ESPN? Remember when one of the quarterbacks was the commentator, and he was always using that term, you just threw a dime.
Throwing dimes.
It was his name will come back to me. So the guy you dimed out, go ahead.
Yeah, I won't say his last name. You'll remember our friend Jimmy, right?
Okay, Jimmy.
If you remember our friend Jimmy, we had an event, we had a live marketing event you and I were doing, I don't know, a couple thousand people in the crowd.
Ooh, this is probably all the way back to like 2008 or 9 or something, right?
Yeah. And he had this amazing product that helped you attract leads into your business, and it was your own personalized sales funnel and all this.
I remember this now.
If you remember this,
yes,
right? And
I just don't remember what happened.
Yeah, I mean, I think there was 2,000 people in the crowd, and he sold something like 500 of them at one shot. I know he did $110,000 in sales in an hour. So, and he was 24, something like that. Like, phenomenal result, right?
From he probably spent it all in Vegas that night, right?
Yep.
Even though the money didn't even though the money didn't settle yet, it was coming, so it's cool.
It was coming, right? So phenomenal job of the marketing, phenomenal job of the sales, but he didn't actually understand what it was going to take to fulfill what he sold.
Got it.
And he was supposed to fulfill all of these things within 30 days. And it was something like 6 months later, still half of them were not fulfilled yet.
Oof, I vaguely remember though, and do
you remember?
And you guys got the kickback because you owned the company, so the kickback came to you for the right.
That's right. Yeah, we did like a 50-50 split or something like that.
Yeah,
but
your event, all of a sudden you're into that conundrum now.
Well, we were in the conundrum, and we just basically said, sort your life out because you're the one who sold it and it's your team. But what he didn't realize is the amount of man hours that it was going to take to fulfill, and he didn't realize the amount of back and forth it was going to take with the customer, and he didn't realize he didn't have standard operating procedures to be able to say to the customer like, we're done, there's no more.
Like we can only take 200 units because I've done my math and I know we can only fulfill 200 units. We're not just going to sell 500 to have a payday, right?
That's right.
And that's what happened.
He did not have that model
or that mindset, which is what it is more than anything. It's a discipline to not versus a discipline to do, right? Sometimes the hardest disciplines in life are disciplining yourself on what not to do. Right? I mean, I got to discipline myself not to sell 500 because I can only handle 2. That's a tough thing to do, right?
It is, because we see the excitement, we see the money, we see the growth, we see the scale.
And you don't want to miss out on customers, right?
And we don't want to miss out, right? But what we don't see, because again, I think it's like we're not wired this way, is we don't see the impending doom that's about to happen on the back end and how hard it is to recover when you piss off a bunch of people in your industry. And I don't know if you remember this part. He disappeared for like 4 years after that. He didn't recover from that mentally.
That one event, that one stigma stayed with him.
Yeah, he didn't recover mentally or financially from that for almost 4 years.
I remember that also. I just didn't realize how much of it was tied to that component.
Yeah, almost 100% of it.
Wow. So you would know that, I wouldn't, but that's interesting. Wow. So not that we were going to go here today, but man, this thing can have a really bad downward spiral effect if you let it, right?
Absolutely. Stress, finances, reputation damage,
Stuff could stay online and not leave. I mean, there's a lot of collateral damage that can happen with a shitty operation. And before we go on to the other two, do you have any recommendations? And maybe I have a few here also on what can people drill down on? Is there a book? Is there a course? Is there a concept? Is there something online that somebody can get some inside information or just a little bit more of a deep dive on how do I structure a basic operation to be able to fulfill at scale?
Yeah, there's two that I like. One is called EOS. It's called the Entrepreneurial
my
Operating System.
mastermind client group, Aaron, swears by EOS.
Mm-hmm. EOS is very in depth, and what it demands of you is it demands of you to think about your business at 10 times the size today, which most people can't wrap their mind around. Like most people are trying. Yeah, I mean, I'm trying to grow my business by 50% a year, right? To think 10x where I'm at today, that's a hard thing to wrap my mind around. But they really demand that of you, and they demand that you build out your operational model, your hierarchy, your operating system to 10x, so that there's never any questions of what has to happen next at each revenue, step. You just know, like the map is planned out.
Yeah, and I know it well. Are you saying to do the EOS model or to read about the EOS model? Because didn't EOS stem from the book Scaling Up?
I think it did. I actually have a copy. I wouldn't recommend the EOS model for companies probably doing less than maybe $1 million a year in revenue.
Yeah, I would think,
because they're expensive. Like they're I say expensive.
Yeah, you're investing in that process, and
you're investing in that process.
And
right? But Scaling Up is a phenomenal book, and I would highly recommend that people read it. EOS, if you're in that sort of 7-figure and above range, to just have everything super, super, super dialed. There's another book by a COO that worked with me 2 years ago. His name is Raul. He wrote a book called Productive Profits. Fantastic book. Little plug for Raul today. And another guy I follow is Cameron Herold. Do you know Cameron Herold?
No, I don't think so.
He started 1-800-GOT-JUNK, scaled it up to $1 billion company.
Wow.
And now his primary focus is in training who he calls the number two. And then he's like, the CEO is the number one, and the number two is the COO.
The next guy in line.
Yeah, he's got a tremendous amount of information if you follow him on social media or his sites, or he has a one-on-one program as well, training COOs.
Good information. It's funny you say that. I was watching CNBC last week, and Warren Buffett of Berkshire Hathaway is like 92, and he's still the CEO of Berkshire Hathaway. It's fascinating to me to watch, and they're actually having a conversation right now about, I think finally Warren Buffett is ready to discuss his number two. I'm like, the guy's 92. He's having the conversation now. Isn't that amazing? So he's like really now finally ready to let go and hand off the reins as CEO of Berkshire Hathaway, one of the most successful, richest companies in the world, by the way, to his number two. 92. I hope I can be 92 talking about my number two. That's incredible.
I think it's amazing.
Yeah, I love it.
And I'm a huge fan of Warren Buffett. And, I had to learn this lesson the hard way. I had to start. Lesson? Yeah, I mean, you and I have known each other for a long time. I'm an idea person that wants to run 100 miles an hour and promote something as fast as I can. And, when I go into a project, if we're not doing $1 million a month by the end of the year, I'm annoyed, right? And I've had to learn over the last couple of years that is not the definition of success. How fast you scale your revenue is not the definition of success. How consistently, how stable you are, what your customers think about you and their experience with your business is significantly more important than how fast you grow in revenue, because slow up is slow down.
And by the way, that's exactly what you just said right there, is stability. That's what stability is, right? When you have stability, you have the foundation for scale. When you don't have stability, you don't have the foundation for scale. You're on a wobbly foundation versus a concrete, cement, stable foundation. And that's sometimes a place you don't notice. Sometimes you don't notice that you're on an unstable foundation when you're ready to scale. And you scale and you have the situation that you just mentioned.
Yeah, and when you look at, like, we have multiple businesses together, we have multiple businesses apart. When we look at our joint businesses, they're up 200-300% year over year. in revenue, right? But because we're masters of sales and digital marketing, that could have been 1,000%. That could have been 2,000%. We could have taken outside capital if we wanted and jammed it. But what would have been the outcome, right? The outcome would have been poor customer experience, poor, reputation, versus, the tribal fans that we're building, right? But still, with all that being said, we're still up 200%, 300%, year over year. That's amazing. But it's getting easier I think you would agree, in all of our businesses. It's getting to the point where we literally could walk away anytime we want for a week and nothing's going to explode. Nothing's going to blow up.
It's a good place to be, by the way.
Yeah, there's a difference between scaling at a level that you can have a life and scaling at a level where you're running around with your hair on fire.
Working 15-hour days, fulfilling everything, doing a million roles, right?
Just
not
putting
having
out
enough key
fires left
people
and
in
right.
place, crappy operation.
Right? And the systems will save you, right? Andrew, don't you remember back in the day when we used to talk about like big corporations? We'd be like, big corporations, losers, old, archaic dinosaurs, can't move very fast, can't pivot.
I talk about it still to this day. As rich as some of these companies are and as valuable as some of these companies are in society today, they still don't have the agility of a small business. They still get stuck in their ways. They get pressured by shareholders to do all kinds of things they don't want to do. So there is some stupidity there still, for sure.
There is. But the reality is that when you're, sub $10 million a year in revenue, maybe even sub $50 million a year in revenue, you can be pretty nimble and you can pivot pretty quickly. When you start talking about 100, 200, $300 million, there's so many things that operationally have to be perfect. There's so many people checking boxes. There's so many people making sure that things are done right, that to pivot is more difficult.
Yeah.
Because there's been do you know how many things you have to have in place to run a $200 million a year business and make sure that things don't break? People, processes.
Layers of people, layers of operations, layers of
you have to
systems, layers of tech. It's unbelievable.
You have to, right? If you can take that mentality and put it into a $1 million a year business, right?
Yeah, exactly.
I just looked at the org chart of before this call of a friend of ours, Ezra Firestone, who runs a business called Boom by Cindy Joseph. I think that business right now is at like, I don't know, maybe $40 million a year.
Skincare.
Yeah, skincare. And I was looking at his org chart earlier today. I only think there's like maybe 30 people.
Not terribly heavy.
Maybe 40 at a max.
Lean machine, cut and dry product, cut and dry fulfillment, right? Just figured out operations.
But the operational structure that he's put together is brilliant.
Yeah.
Right? Where everybody's got their zone of genius and everybody's got their, things that they have to excel at. It doesn't need a 200-300 person business, support system, right? To run it. It just needs to be done properly so that, and their customers love them at Boom by Cindy Joseph. They love them. They're super fans, right? I know we spent a lot of the first part of the
so it brings us to marketing now. So now you're sort of ready to go, right? Now you have a foundation in place. House can be built, windows can go up, walls can go in, roof can go on. That's sales and marketing and customer development and fulfillment. And that's when you can really get aggressive. And when you're in a position where you can get aggressive, it's a great position to be in. A lot of people are not in a position where they can get aggressive. They're timid, not aggressive, because they don't have the backdrop of a stable foundation like we talked about really for the first 30 minutes, right, is operations, and why that stability is so important if you're going to scale so that you don't get into trouble with your sales and marketing.
Absolutely. And as we pivot to the sales and marketing side, a lot of people think they're the same thing. They're not really, especially if there's humans involved. Sales is sales managers, sales team, sales follow-up processes, customer experience. It's those things. Marketing is putting your messaging and your product in front of people to bring them to the sales process, right? So when you talk about sales, in particular in scaling, we've covered a ton of this in our previous shows, right?
And we need to talk about sales before marketing, by the way, because if you don't have a sales process in place, again, it kind of dovetails into the operations. If that sales, maybe you're the salesperson, fine. If that sales process isn't embedded securely in place, and you go promote the daylights out of your business, you have a winning ad on CNBC, you have a winning ad on Facebook, and all of a sudden you get a couple thousand leads and a few hundred customers, and the whole thing's a mess from a sales standpoint, we're back to the scenario in operations.
Exactly. And this is one of the first things we look at with new clients when they come into scale.
How do you sell now?
Is we create a model, right? And the model is like, how much is the first click going to cost, all the way to what's the last conversion on the last product that they might see as far as we can into the sales process. Mm-hmm. And we look at the conversions all the way from front to back, and we figure out if it can be profitable at scale, right?
Because maybe it can't be.
Because maybe it can't. And I think that's one of the biggest things that you and I see all the time is that, people don't have an effective enough sales process on their back end to introduce other products, more products, to keep people on longer, to convert on the front end at a high enough level. Maybe their pricing is too high, too low, and they don't look at the math to really define, what it's going to take to be profitable at scale, right? Because if you want to boil down scaling and competition in the marketplace, he who can afford to spend the most always wins.
To get a customer.
Correct.
Yeah.
If you can only spend,
when I heard that for the first time, it was probably 20 years ago, right? You hear it and you're like, man, that is so counterintuitive. It almost doesn't make sense. Why would I want to spend the most amount of money to get a customer? And the answer is because nobody else can.
Correct.
That's the answer.
Well,
and then you go, whoa, I just separated myself totally from the pack.
Yeah, and we're talking about scaling here, right? When we're talking about like micro niche, micro product, micro service, your return on your ad spend, your return on your investment is always very, very high because you're spending very little. You're going to a super targeted niche. They already get it. They don't have a lot of questions, blah, blah. But when you want to scale, all of a sudden the audience has to become bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger. And the bigger your audience becomes, the less they know about you, your product, your industry, your solution. They're probably less interested because they're getting into further and further circles away from your core avatar, right? When that happens, you have to spend more in marketing money to acquire that customer because they're not at that buying point today, right? They might have to learn about you for a while, and that buying point for them might be 6 months down the road. Yep. So as a result, your costs go up and up and up. And we see this with our clients all the time where they come in and they say, well, I can only afford
my cost per acquisition continuing to go up? We were solid for so long, right? And now it's like, what's going on? Nothing's changed. Right? It's a little bit of fatigue, right? A little bit of fatigue.
One, they're either fatiguing a very small audience, right? Or two, they're wanting to scale into bigger and bigger, less aware audiences. And as a result, they have to pay more because they have to do more marketing and more education to that clientele before they're actually going to be willing to bite because they're not in the buying, decision-making process today. Right. And we have clients that have come to us and said, okay, well, I want to pay $50, cost per acquisition for this customer. And we say, okay. And then all of a sudden we double, triple, quadruple their ad spend and they're at $200. Right. And they say, oh my God, I can't afford to be spending $200 on a customer. No, you can afford to be spending $200 on a customer if you've got a model that can scale, right? And how do you create a model that can scale? You have more products. You have a deeper product line. You have more premium things on the back end. You have better retention. You have better return customer numbers, right? That was one of the things with Ezra that blew me away was
back end.
Dude, I remember I think he showed me his numbers the first year in Boom, and there was a chart of new customers versus return customers, right? And obviously you want return customers because they don't require a whole lot of marketing spend.
Yeah, it's
right?
a compound effect. Their cars are getting hit every month.
Yeah, I think he called it the halo effect, which I like that term.
Compound
right?
effect, halo effect,
And
yeah.
in the first year, I think his return customers was like 10% of overall revenue, right? In the 5th year, it was like 60% were return customers.
Wow.
What do you think?
They love the product, obviously, too, and they love the community, right?
Right. That all comes down to great sales, marketing, and operations, right? They did an awesome job at nurturing their people, creating the ultimate customer experience, making them feel good about what they were buying, like so on and so forth, right? It was all those things that we talk about as they had their back end so dialed in and figured out that they didn't have to just go and keep churning through new customers in and out the door. You know, their sales and marketing could bring in a certain amount of people, but once they were in, man, they were in. They were fans of the business.
Let's go to marketing now. Kind of ties together, right? I wish I had an image to put up, right? Like, think about this as like a wheel.
Right.
Or 3 legs of a stool. Right? If one of these is wobbly or one is missing, the whole thing sort of folds, right? It's like a trifecta approach. You have operations, you have sales, you have marketing, and the wheel goes around and around and around and around. If one thing gets pulled out of there, you have a monster hole in your business. Sort of like 3 legs of a stool. You remove one leg of the stool tips over. God forbid you remove 2 legs from the stool doesn't stand a chance, right? It's that. It's operations. It's sales, so that you can promote, so that you can be in all forms of media, so that you can be omnipresent. And that's marketing.
And that's your marketing, right?
And by the way, you know, counterintuitively, it's last.
Yeah.
But everybody wants to go first.
I think you'd do that first proof of concept, and then you take a step back, and then you build because you have proof of concept, right?
And I think that's the key lesson here, Aaron, is that you can't go build an operation for 6 months to then all of a sudden realize your product doesn't sell. So you're in, a lot of times as an emerging entrepreneur with a new product line, you're in a little bit of a conundrum. How do I attack that? What if I go build this elaborate operation and then I realize I can't sell the thing? Big problem. Go figure out if you can sell the thing at a small scale first. That's the big takeaway, right? To a sliver of an audience.
Correct.
So you don't make the same mistakes in the 3 examples we gave you earlier, right?
Yep.
Can I sell this? Is there proof of concept? Maybe I'm just going to go out and acquire 5 or 6 customers and then shut it down and figure out, will they stay? Do they still? Will they ascend? Can I move them to the next level? Will they refer? Will they pay continuity? A lot of things you can ask yourself. Then I have the data and the information I need to be able to go scale, right? I think that's the big takeaway is you don't have to wait and see and hope that the operation that we build for 3 months, you know, is perfect before we then go market. You can absolutely sliver into it.
Yeah, and when it comes to scaling your marketing, I mean, I won't zone in on any particular channel. There's a ton of different channels.
Yeah, no need to. We've talked about it a million times. There's no shortage of places to be seen. Social media, TV, video. I mean, come on.
Yeah, I mean, I prefer, you know, things like, you know, Google search and Facebook and Instagram because they're super quick to get in, get dirty, small budgets, blah, blah, blah.
Quick test. I mean, you can prove concept for $500 to $1,000 on an offer if you wanted to in a week.
Absolutely. No question about it. We do it all the time.
Couldn't do that 10 years. Couldn't do that 20 years ago.
But when we're talking about scale, and this is what a lot of people come to us, you know, for, because they're, you know, at maybe $100,000, $200,000 a month in their, you know, their business digitally, and they want to get up to those higher levels. If you want to scale, like we just talked about, into bigger, less aware audiences, what has to happen is a couple of key things. One, your creative testing has to be rapid, on point, off the charts.
I know what you mean, but explain what you mean by your creative testing to.
Right. So I'll just use one channel as an example, right? We were talking about this before the show. Our conversions for Pipeline Pro right now are off the charts. They're the highest they've ever been. But we've been running that offer now for a year and a half. And how can we be running it for a year and a half and have the highest conversion rates ever this week?
Game?
Right? Most people, what they do is they run the same creative that worked the first time, same image, same video, same ad copy, same audiences, and they burn it out. They keep just trying to spend more
on the same thing,
and then they burn it out, right? people get fatigued by seeing the same, they start to get blind to it, right? And the more you're spending, the faster you're fatiguing the audience, right? So the more you spend, the more you've got to ramp up your creative and audience testing to stay ahead of that fatigue, right? The deeper you've got to get in something like your retargeting, right? So if you've got people who've watched your videos a million times or whatever, you've got to maybe have 10 to 12 pieces of creative retargeting all of those video viewers to attack the different parts of their mind that are creating resistance to moving forward, maybe by sending reviews, testimonials, case studies, funny, engaging humor, attacking big objections, big pain points. Like, you've got to get better and better at your game, and you got to test quicker, right? You've got to know your math of what you're willing to pay for a click, what you're willing to pay for a purchase, an appointment booked, a lead, a sale, whatever you got. And you got to hold to your math and your model very, very tightly. And what that requires from you is significantly more output when it comes to the creative, the audience testing, and the depth of how well you're willing to follow up with people who already know that you exist.
And at scale, this most likely isn't you playing around with the Facebook ads manager, popping into Google Analytics. That's a starting point. But at a scaling point, this is a scaling conversation today, that eventually is a team that needs to do that daily. To constantly change things up and split test. I mean, I was jokingly saying the other day, I had somebody come to me the other day and say, do you think I'm ready for my own ads manager? Like, do you think I'm at a point where I should bring on an ads manager? Successful business, by the way.
Yep.
Doing the ads himself. I said, listen, you're not going to grow much more without one, because an ads manager is going to come in and be a second set of eyes for you. They're going to run your ads. They're going to split test. They're going to bring you ideas. They're going to change creative. They're going to help you with changing up funnels. And they're going to be like, stock trader watching your portfolio all day long. That's what they're going to be like. They're going to be on it all day.
And that's their sole focus. They're not the CEO, the CMO, the customer service. Their focus is math and ads.
Right. So the longer you don't have one, I told him, the bigger the chance as you get busier that conversion starts slipping away because somebody's not on it day and night. And you know this because this is the world you live in, but not the world I live in because I'm on the funnels and sales process side of things. But I value the importance of what we're talking about right now and vice versa. The ads manager values the importance of, hey, listen, if I'm going to go run ads for you and I want to stay on retainer for a long time, you best have a really good sales funnel that is constantly optimized or we both lose.
Right. So, not just a sales funnel, but a sales team.
That's it.
A fulfillment side, operation side, because if I send you all of these leads and sales and you drop the ball behind there, you're not going to make money. And if you're not making money, then you're not going to pay me and I get fired. And so I'm doing my job, but you're not doing your job. One of the greatest frustration points for copywriters is because I studied copy for a long time, is when they write unbelievable copy, could take 2 weeks to write the best copy ever, and they find out that it gets driven into a crappy sales process. And it's like they're making a boatload of front end sales, but like we said in the beginning, it pains them to see it fall into a crappy sales process. Same with you, a traffic guy. Nothing pains you more than driving the best quality traffic to an offer, but yet the client or the project, the offer doesn't take care of the client. The offer doesn't convert, right? Maybe you can get the lowest cost per conversion you can, but there's a disconnect with them hitting the web page and taking the next step, for example. That could be the offer. That could be the sales team. That could be the fulfillment of the product on the back end. That can be, which is why we don't work with clients anymore unless we can see every single thing they're doing and give them the best practices. Or have the ability to change it in some cases, right? To be able to go in and actually handle, hey, let's update the funnel. Let's change the traffic. Let's update the offer. Let's change the copy. Who's selling? Who's not selling? Do you have sales guys? Do you not have sales guys? I mean, again, a scaling conversation, there's a lot of moving parts from a sales and marketing standpoint that must be together synergistically or the whole thing will fly. I see it all the time. It will flop. I see day in, I feel like all I see day in and day out is as much as we see these amazing success stories and we were able to architect a lot of amazing success stories, there's no doubt we see more failures than anything, right? It's like, it's baseball, man. It's you get up 10 times, you're going to hit 2 times. 80% of the time,
these businesses, they're missing one of these key elements. It's an operational issue. It's a marketing meltdown. It's an amazing sales process, but the promoting is weak or vice versa. And it's just, if you stay in these lanes, operation, sales, marketing, and you're constantly tweaking and dialing them in, you're going to stack the deck in your favor to win every time you promote. But if you don't, you're only as strong as your weakest link. And let me tell you something. One of these links is weak. There's nothing. There's no scale. There's no business.
Kiss your money goodbye.
It's nothing. It's a delicate game. Scaling is a delicate game to play, I guess, is how I'll leave it off here. It's a delicate.
It's a high energy, high stress game that I live in daily.
It's an emotional roller coaster, man. I mean, sometimes we connect at the end of the week and we're just burnt.
Oh, every day.
For you daily, right?
I say,
burnt.
I tell my wife there's been too much braining going on today. Way too much braining.
Yeah, I mean, different conversation for a different way, but how to disconnect from that mayhem, there's ways to do that too. But this is a delicate game. Scaling is, that's why we called it a tough talk on scaling, because it isn't an easy talk. If you want to, and listen, you don't have to want to scale. You might be running a perfectly fine, clean lifestyle business that isn't so stressful, and you're making the right amount of money, and you're just kind of keeping it at that level. But listen, if you want to go to the next level and you want to scale, there's going to be some really uncomfortable things that will have to take place to get you to the next level. And they're all going to tie back to operations, sales, and marketing. By the way, in that order, operations, then sales process, then the marketing that puts them into the sales process, that lands them into the operation. And that is the key. And I'm going to leave it there today. You have anything else to add?
You wrapped it up.
You're burnt because you're burnt. It's Friday. We'll see
I'm
you
ecstatic.
all.
I love Fridays.
We will see you on the next episode of Sales Velocity TV. That's Aaron. I'm Andrew. And if you love the show, you want to see topics that aren't discussed, that you'd like to see discussed, head over to salesvelocitytv.com. You can see all the past shows, and you can get in touch with us over there as well. We'll see you on the next one.
Welcome to Sales Velocity TV, where we pull back the curtain on how the top businesses in the world sell more with. We hope you enjoyed this episode. Sales Velocity TV is powered by Pipeline Pro, the ultimate all-in-one sales pipeline management and marketing automation platform that makes all others obsolete. And we can prove it. Take a tour at gopipelinepro.com. See you on the next episode.